Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor goes to Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai, by Shem Harakakadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles. Peace, love, and salutations to the Bayaf Dawadah, the house of David. Alright, my brother Zion out of GMS Boston, once again here on my channel, and Lord willing, through the Spirit. This video is edifying. Just digging into the core of the legitimate documents, the U.S. Constitution, the documents that gives this country its spirit, that gives this country its life, and by natural selection, one sane, logical man can only conclude that the very fabric of this nation was birthed off of fraud. All right, was birthed off of fraud. Okay, and there's another conclusion. We'll get into that in a minute. All right, so first of all, I always bring this out, right? And what the world needs to understand, and they will understand, that the terms and conditions to heaven and hell, all right? And you will understand, that one definition of heaven and hell is and will always be a condition. And that condition is and will always be played out on earth. Okay? Heaven and hell are conditions that will be played out here on earth. All right? When you go to the story of Lazarus, and the beggar, all right? The beggar was in his hell. The beggar was in a condition of hell, all right, when the rich man was in a position of heaven. And then the roles were reversed, all right? The Lord said the kingdom is going to be done as in heaven as on earth. All right. So now, with that being said, you had one nation that was being established. Okay. One nation that was being established. They were building their kingdom. All right. And another nation was crying, was in tears, was in mourning. They were low. Why? Because this other nation was riding high. All right. These are just the facts. Okay. So now, here in America, all right, they like to tell so-called black people to get over what had happened to them, 200 years ago. Okay? Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7. Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask thy fathers, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee. First and foremost, our history does not go back just 200 years ago. When you're dealing with so-called black history, all right, it didn't just start in the Congos of Africa, all right? It didn't start in Africa, period. Nevertheless, it goes way back, all right? You can trace this history back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, okay? You can trace this history back, if you're spiritual enough, all right, to the beginning of time. All right, to the forgings of the makings of this world, Yahweh Shai, along with the elect. Okay, so our history runs deep. All right, but for this lesson, all right, we just the scriptures say, ask thy fathers, and they will show thee, and ask thy elders, and they will tell thee. All right, I can recall stories of my mom. All right, my mom grew up in the deep south, telling me, remember stories of her telling me how she went to school barefooted, all right, and she had to walk to school while so-called white kids was able to ride the bus, and they would often laugh and make fun of them as they went to school. You hear of stories up here in the north, obviously where I'm in Boston, and you hear of plenty of stories of certain church bombings. Well, that church bombings, hit home with me because my grandmother's cousins, had a church They actually had some property, had some homes, had some church, and the KKK came and burnt down their church. All right, burnt it down. Everything that they worked for basically was torched. All right, with no remedy, without remorse, without anything given back to them. All right, so you had this Edomite lady, all right, tell brothers, basically to get over what had happened, but every day, every year, annually, once a year, all right, these people, these Babylonians get together and they celebrate what's called Independence Day, right? And it's a United States holiday, right? Independence Day, also called the 4th of July or July 4th in the United States, the annual celebration of nationhood. It commemorates the passage of the Declaration of Independence by a Continental Congress on July 4th, 1776. Independence Day is celebrated on Saturday, July 4th in 2021. So, every year, all right, here you have 1776, okay? This was over 200 years ago, okay? So in an event that happened over 200 years ago, is celebrated today because what happened over 200 years ago in 1776 directly affects the lives of people that live in America to this day. All right? So you wouldn't shame them for celebrating 4th of July. Allow me to condescend if you're a so-called Edomite, that's you deserve to celebrate that, what's called manifest destiny, you fought for your freedom, your independence. Let's look this up.
According to Wikipedia, a tyrant, in the modern English usage of the word, is an absolute ruler who is unrestrained by law, or one who has usurped a legitimate ruler's sovereignty.
Often portrayed as cruel, tyrants may defend their positions by resorting to repressive means. All right, so a tyrannical government, all right, is what's embedded in the Second Amendment, right? That in one of the 10 amendments to the Constitution, conspiring to the Bill of Rights, state a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of free states. All right, the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. All right, so this tyrannical government is directly affected with the right to bear arms, right? So let's just look up the definition of tyrannical, right? Exercising power in a cruel or arbitrary way. So, and here's similar to oppressive, totalitarian, all right? Unjust, brutal, harsh, all right? So, according to the U.S. Constitution, bearing arms, all right, and fighting the government is totally legal if you feel, this government is being harsh, it's being ruthless, it's being unjust, overbearing, all right, oppressive, okay? So, dating back pre-1776, pre-independence, you had up here what's called the Boston Tea Party, and that was a protest, right? They were protesting high taxes. They were protesting being thrown in jail, all right, without cause, without proper cause, without seeing a judge. That's why in America, when you go to jail, it's mandatory that you see a judge the next day. You get to see a judge because pre-1776, the British would throw, the what's now they call the Patriots in jail, and leave them there for days, months, even years without trial. So in America, that's one of the first things they said. They said if you get thrown in jail, you're going to have the right to face your accuser and you're going to have the right to see a judge. All right, so what happened back then directly affects the lives of Babylonians today. They're no longer a British colony. They're free from that oppressing government as they feel, you know? What makes you think that we as a people, so-called black people, can forget about what happened to us 200 years ago? Because what happened to us, just like you, it directly affects our lives today. It directly affects our lives today. Oppression is something that is rooted within our DNA. You look at it, Jake, right? You know, I took on the oppression of my mom, you know, which she took on the oppression of her mom, and she took on the oppression of her grandmother. Like, the psychological aspects of slavery is embedded in us, man. Um, this is the book of Baruch, chapter 3, verse 8. Behold, we are yet this day in the land of our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subjected to payments according to all the iniquities of our fathers, which departed from the Lord our power. So yet this day we're in the land of our captivity. That fear is embedded in our DNA, man. That slave-like mentality is what needs to be broken, but that's what's embedded in us. We were raised this way, all right? And for them to tell you to get over it, while they don't get over it, is bullshit. Just like there were positives to what happened, enough to be celebrated, enough to light fireworks, enough to barbecue, all right, enough to be happy. There were some negatives that took place. There was some hell being afflicted, all right? Now this Constitution states that, you know, all right, let me see if I can find this. Constitution.
According to Wikipedia, the second paragraph of the United States Declaration of Independence starts as follows. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So, going back to what I said, the very, very fabric of the soul and the spirit of this place, according to these documents, one can only conclude that it was set up off of fraud, which is a lie. Because, you know, we all weren't created equal. All right? We all were not created equal. We were not free. All right?
Here's the definition of fraud. Wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain.
You see? A wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in a financial gain. All right? And what financial gain did America get? She became the richest nation on the world, forged underneath these documents as what was called fraud. All right? You can conclude that, or you can conclude that the U.S. Constitution, all right, was never ever intended to be, all right, for the so-called black man, Native American, and Hispanic. All right, and if so, if you live in this new world, if you want to go enter into this new world, you only thing you can do is get rid of this document. Get rid of, not amend it, right, but to completely scrap the document in itself, because the document is flawed. The document is flawed. You see, but we know that Esau's not gonna do this. All right, our job is just to hold him responsible for what comes out of his mouth. I tell you that we was going to do this in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, the 2nd chapter. Check this out, right? It says, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 14. He was made to reprove our thoughts. All right, and the subject matter here is talking about Esau. And we were made to reprove their thoughts. He is grievous unto us even to behold, for his life is not like other men's. His ways are of another fashion. We are esteemed of him as counterfeits. See? Esau knows that we look at him as what? As a counterfeit, as a fraud.
Here's the definition of counterfeit. made an exact imitation of something valuable or important with the intention to deceive or defraud.
You see, their documents are with the intentions of fraud. They're faked. They're forged. All right, they're not legitimate. Natural selection. All right. They're lies. They're lies. They're lies. So it says we are esteemed of him as counterfeits. He abstaineth from our ways as from filthiness. He pronounces the end of the just to be blessed, and maketh his boast that God is their father. You see? You see? They're nothing but they're fraudulent people, man. They're heirs to the throne, the kingship, you know, from the forging of our Lord. These documents that they set this whole nation up on, it's all based off of lies and based off of fraud. Habakkuk chapter 2. 2 verse. Let me jump up. 2 and 12, right? Woe unto him that buildeth a town with blood and establisheth a city by iniquity. What is iniquity? Iniquity goes back to a sin, a transgression of the law. How was this place established? By blood and by lies and deceptive, by offer being counterfeit, by imitation of something that's valuable with the intent to deceive, you know, to get gain, you know. Even the emancipation or approximation, the idea of telling you that the slaves are free and when they're clearly not, was another fraudulent, all right, act, paper signed to get gain, to get money, transferring, all right, the property of the people. That was basically a wealth grab from the government, taking away the wealth of the people and putting it into their own hands, man. They wanted the slaves for themselves, the government, and this is why they did what they did. They wanted the slaves for themselves. That's why you become, after you commit a crime, according to the U.S. Constitution, you know, it didn't abolish slavery. If you committed a crime, you were still underneath that scope, all right, of being a slave. And here you have what's forced labor, mass incarceration. You become what? A property of the state, state property. All right. Now these crimes and these drugs come into play. Jake is getting locked up, making license plates, working for corporations. Let me see. Right? So when you type it, I got this information, right? 12 major corporations benefiting from prison industry complex. All right. Prison labor in the United States was referred to as insourcing under the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, WOTCO. Employees receive a tax credit of $2,400 for every work release inmate they employ as a rewarding for hiring risky target groups, you know, and they're in jail. And you know, it all goes back to E. It all goes back to E, man. You get a tax credit for just hiring these people who are so-called risk, you know, at risk. And I'm quite sure it's going to go into how much they get paid. All right. It says the workers are not only cheap labor, but they are considered easier to control. They also tend to be African American males. Companies are free to avoid providing benefits like health insurance or sick days. They also don't need to worry about unions, demands for vacation time, raises, or family issues. According to the Left Business Observer, the federal prison industry proceeds 100% of all military helmets, war supplies, and other equipment. The workers supply 98% of the entire market for equipment assembly services, 93% of the paints and paintbrushes, 92% of the stove assembly, 46% of the body armor, and 36% of home appliances, 30% of headphones, microphones, speakers, and 12% of office furniture, airplane parts, medical supplies, and much more. Prisoners are even raising eye seeing dogs for the blind. With all that productivity, the inmates make about 90 cents to $4 a day. Here are some of the biggest corporations to use such practices, but there are hundreds of more. Man, this hurts, man. This hurts. And what hurts is not the fact that we're slaves, but the deception that these devils deal with, the craft that they deal with, the subtlety, and that's within their documents. It's within their documents. It's all lawful within their documents, you know? And these documents are counted as the U.S. Constitution, yeah. These great individuals and these great people and the founding fathers, you know? And it's all bullshit. Check this out, right? Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establish a city by iniquity. Behold, it is not of the Lord of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for the very vanity. For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters covers the sea. And this is thus, man, the water Yahweh Shem Yahushai for putting the spirit on the elder apostles to teach, to not to leave Israel for dead like them other guys did, to basically give CPR through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai to that body, to those bones, all right, to wake up that body, the valley of dry bones, to teach our elders, Elder Adamah and Amos, and for them to teach us, and for us to teach you people, man. And that's that order, you know, that knowledge, you know, covering the people. And it's beautiful that, you know, we've woken up, all right, to what is true knowledge. Okay, forgive me, man. It says, woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, and putteth the bottle to him, and maketh his drunkard also, that he may look upon his nakedness. Now, when you say that, you know, the slaves are free pending a charge, you know, and then set up the system of where drugs and majority of the people that are in jail, that are so-called black men, are there for nonviolent drug offenses. You set the society up for, you know, poor people to rob, steal, and you go in and you attack them, you arrest them, and you put them in these prisons, and you're having them as slaves, man. I bet you a slave got more than 90 cents a day when you consider the shelter and, you know, the food that the slave owner had to give him. You know, it's sad. It's sad, man. It really is sad. Slavery is alive, well and alive, man. And the fact that they hid it the way that they did for so long, you know, it proves the ignorance of our people as well. Our people gotta wake the hell up. So here you have McDonald's. McDonald's uses inmate to produce frozen foods. Inmate process beef patties. They also process bread, milk, and chicken products, right? Wendy's, all right, Walmart, Starbucks, Sprint, Verizon, Victoria's Secret, okay, JCPenney, all right, Airlines, and Avis, okay. All right, so what happened, you know, back then directly affects us, you know, directly. It all ties in. It all ties in, okay. Verse 16, thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory, man. You know. Shalom.